Hello, everyone, and welcome to Silver Sunday. This Sunday, January the 13th. No, that January. Man, it's February the 13th. The morning is for all you dudes. If you don't have flowers for your honey, you need to get that taken care of now. Or chocolates, if she likes chocolates. So yeah, we got some late joiners here because they didn't think we were having a stream for some reason tonight. I don't really know what they were thinking.
I didn't see a link.
Didn't see a link.
The link was up there though.
I saw one from the last week, and that was the only one I saw. But I didn't look all that well.
Well, I apologize. That was my fault then for not posting a link. Curtis asked
Super Bowl in. Just figured you were the Super Bowl.
No, we're fixing to watch the halftime show, so we got to take about a 15-minute break.
I don't watch any of it.
It's that American soccer thing going on. So
yeah, I don't watch any of that. The only thing I watch is the ads, and I'll watch those on YouTube.
Oh, watch them after the fact. No, yeah. the halftime show is always kind of fun.
I don't ever watch the halftime show. I just watch the ads. So I am sorry for not getting you guys a link. I apologize.
You may have. I didn't. I scrolled up and I just saw the one from the.
Curtis asked somewhere, are we going to have a show on because of Super Bowl? But I don't see it now.
I asked you in a private chat because I figured it was a executive decision. I figured.
Oh, okay.
It's her fault, Roberta. It's her fault.
Yeah. How? No.
Well, anyway, here we are, and we're going to have us a show tonight. We're not going to talk about the Super Bowl because I assume none of us are watching it.
Can we talk about Olo?
We will talk about Olo some.
I'm watching it right now.
As is the case, I rated the cheat boxes. So, yeah, Pete will like this one. Hey, Pete, look what I picked up. Yes, I know it's a reprint, but
oh, that's nice.
Yeah, got some. I was gonna say JR, but it's actually JRSR, Ramita Senior.
That's cool.
Yeah, good looking stuff. So, yeah, I rated the cheap boxes and got me some fun stuff as always. All right, so let's make some introductions and then we'll get into. I am Roland. I am the chief cook and bottle washer here. I write a couple of comics, Silverline Team Up, Cat and Mouse, Trumps, Rejects, which hopefully will be shipping a couple of weeks. We still have some time on that one. So that's me. Roberta, tell everybody who you are.
Hi. Roberta Conroy. I was Malibu Comics colorist in the 90s, and I work with the man, Roland Man. And
the man, Roland.
Mm-hmm. And also Thomas Flormonti. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, long story short, lots of time went by. I was a graphic designer for a long blip, and I decided to come back to comics because I missed it so much, and the circumstances were so good. And this company's just the right people.
It is, isn't it?
So
fun.
Yeah.
Next we have Mr. Peter Clinton coming to us from across the pond. Pete, tell everybody who you are.
Just a penciler.
The hat says it all, right?
I just draw stuff. That's it. I draw Silverline Team Up. I draw Chumps number 4. What else do I draw? That's it. Yeah, no, that's it. I'm trying to think. That's it.
Okay.
You did some of the Christmas special.
That's right.
Sure. I draw other stuff, but at the moment I'm actually literally in front of me is Chumps number 4.
Woohoo!
But, I don't think I can share because I don't think Streamlabs lets me share. You know. I'll try.
You can share.
Well,
I say you can share. That. I don't know. Well, I do say that. I know Roberta and Tommy can share. So.
I have a little share button.
And Curtis can share.
It's there.
Yeah, I don't think it does.
You can if you want to.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. You know.
Oh.
Are you doing it through your iPad or are you on a computer?
a click and Chrome has lost permission to share your screen. All right, let me follow these steps. All right, we'll work it out. You go.
Okay, all right. Tommy, tell people who you are.
Thomas Flormonte Jr. Been doing comics since early '90s. Bunches of stuff with Roland in the past, but I've worked for Marvel. A little bit of off and on DC stuff. Just a bunch of stuff for everybody here and there, but a lot of Ultraverse stuff with Roland. Again, did a lot of the Nightman books, a lot of the Strangers, all that kind of good stuff. And currently inking Peter on most. I call him Mr. Pete. Most of his stuff. There he is waving, trying to figure out how to share his screen again, and it's not working, Pete. And working on Trump's 4. Just got done with the Rejects Kickstarter. That was over C. Michael Lanning.
Yep.
And yeah.
Excellent.
Come on, Kablam Digital Printing. Also, there you go.
Right.
Yep,
All right,
yep,
Curtis, tell people who you are, and then we've got a guest with us tonight, and Curtis,
I see that.
to do the introductions for us.
Yeah. I'm Curtis Fujita. I'm the creative director at Silverline. I also teach martial arts. I'm a kung fu instructor, and my upcoming comic book for Silverline is called Shadow Ghost. It's the kung fu comic by a kung fu master. And our special guest tonight is a good friend of mine. He is a comic book creator and also the art director of Kung Fu Magazine, and the creator of the currently successful campaign on Kickstarter, A Tiger's Tale. And so it is Patrick Lugo. And did I miss anything, Patrick?
and you forgot something else? He's
yes,
also
and of course,
your co-host.
My co-host on the Comics Fu Show as well. So a lot of things.
That's right.
Patrick.
The best byline for last.
Exactly.
Uh-oh, we lost Pete. He's trying to get it cooked up.
He shared so much he kicked himself out of the stream.
He pushed the wrong
Unshared
button.
himself.
Patrick, how was that for an introduction?
Oh, it's glorious. I feel so privileged to be here. I feel like the new kid on the block, but so thanks for making me feel young.
Well, we promise we won't hate. Right?
Yes.
All right, so while Pete is getting that worked out, we're going to show Patrick is running, as Curtis mentioned, Patrick is running a Kickstarter. And so we're going to share his video, and then we're going to ask him a few questions about it before we get on to talking about black and white versus color comics, and we'll see what Patrick says about that too. So so here we go. Here is the Kickstarter video.
Hi, I'm Plugo, author, illustrator, comic creator, and the art director for Kung Fu Magazine for more than 20 years. But I'm here to talk to you about a project that's really special to me. It's the middle grade graphic novel, A Tiger's Tale. Imagine The Jungle Book meets Kung Fu, but this isn't just a story of talking animals and fight scenes. This comic goes deeper. It started in the pages of Kung Fu Magazine, and in that time, I've worked with Kung Fu masters, trying to collect their folklore and their creation myths and a lot of their philosophical tidbits. And I've taken all of those lessons and embedded that into the story of A Tiger's Tale. Now, this project was completed a few years ago as a black and white graphic novel, you know, yin and yang, black and white. But after some research and meditation, I've realized that to bring it to Kickstarter, what I really want to do is color it to make it even more appealing for the young readers that I have in mind for this book. You see, it's a story about finding one's place in the world, and I think it'll be ideal for any young martial artist starting on their journey. But don't be fooled. It's going to be entertaining for anyone who reads it, and the art, I think, is going to look gorgeous. Added to that, I'm going to have a bunch of back matter, glossary, index, how-to pages, essays, some of which you can even read now at atigerstale.com. This project is really important to me, and as a result, I've included a lot of really interesting reward tiers, mini comics, stickers, but also some gallery pieces and original art. But one of the reward tiers I'm really most excited about is a variant cover by world-renowned Taoist Kung Fu master Tu Jin Chang. I can go on about Grandmaster 2. In fact, I'll do another video specifically about him down below. But before that, let me tell you this other thing. I have set aside a few pages so that backers can witness the coloring process as it happens. So please join me on this artistic journey. I think it'll be unique.
Very cool.
Very nice.
That's
Great.
pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. That fantastic. Sorry, I got distracted here by some of the comics comments. Stephanie says yes, no Super Bowl, but yes to comics. Yay! And we agree to that. Not that we have anything against the Super Bowl, but we have everything about the comics.
That's where like LeBron James hits his home runs, right?
I think so. I think that's right. But then he gets red carded or something like that.
Right into the
don't know.
penalty box, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Bobby Westkovich, Sherry All Mississippi. Thank you so much, my father-in-law. Let's see here. Woot, Patrick, go Tigers! Tail. My kid is rooting for the Tiger team only because Patrick. Woo! Oh, Patrick's got a fan. Brought him a fan. Excellent. Stephanie, it's good to see you here. Hopefully you'll stick around. Oh, and she even says clapping at the video that we just showed. So, and of course we have Aaron Humphrey says, hey all, what's up, Aaron? Yeah. So I have a question. I'm sure Curtis has some questions lined up, but what made you decide to do a middle grade, target a middle grade audience instead of an adult audience?
Well, I think I've always tried to see Tiger's Tail as a martial arts answer to books like Bone and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and trying to kind of speak to younger audiences now that comics are for kids again, right? Now that First, Second, and these big publishers are really like identifying that market. So, bringing it to Kickstarter, I think now was a good time to kind of really try and give it to, like I said, to young martial artists to really tap into like what I was doing. Like, I think a lot of adults at this point, have their opinions on martial arts, but I know from personal experience, and maybe Curtis can confirm or contrast it, but like when I was first exposed to martial arts, I really had no idea what was the difference between, the kid who was there just to bully other kids and the teacher who was there to really try and get a student, to elevate themselves. So I'm trying to kind of use Tiger's Tail to kind of help draw those contrasts.
Excellent.
Cool.
And Pete figured out how to share. So good job, Pete.
Glorious.
Right.
Can't decide whether it looks better.
It's only taken me like 12 months. This is the first time Google's actually said, no, you got to do this. It's finally realised I've been trying to do and suggested some help.
Nice.
Yeah, Pete had noticed that the rest of us have been doing this from the beginning, and he's just, you can do that? I didn't know.
It just kept telling me, no, what are you trying to do? You can't do this. No, I'm back.
All right, Curtis, did you have a question?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I found it very interesting, not just the background of the book and things like that, but also even just how you're running the campaign. Like you had this thing called the 55 backers, right? Which I thought was a pretty interesting concept. I don't know if you could share with everybody about that.
Well, yeah, I was calling it the first 55 because I like the alliteration, and it was just a way to a little bit of team building, right? One of the zines that I provide cover art for sponsored the printing of a series of posters for Tiger's Tail as like a here, let us help you out. So I figured I'd give them to the first 55 backers to really kind of see who would jump on. And I think one of my tricks was that even if they were going to order the PDF, I would still send them the poster because I wanted those first 55. It's kind of like a play, my take on, say, Quentin Tarantino's Crazy 88s, right? So I wanted those first 55s to have that one thing that they could all have together. So that was kind of fun, and in fact, our 55th backer turns out to be a a cover master who was actually featured on the cover of Kung Fu magazine, and so he kind of liked what we were doing. So he kind of rolled in right at that last number to be, you know, to have that heroic entrance. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, I don't know if maybe I was originally I was thinking we could mention it at the end of the show, but we might as well mention it at the beginning. We can always remind people at the end. But Patrick did have a special announcement, perhaps, about a stretch goal.
Oh, which one? Well, I've got a couple of stretch goals coming on, because I mean, the thing was that this campaign, much to my surprise, was pretty much funded overnight. I was not expecting that at all. So I've been kind of scrambling to figure out, you know, what else can we do? Like, I had the first 55 posters ready, so that one was a given. But then I've been working on a cool new sticker that I want to put out there. Just you know, this past February, right? The Lunar New Year switched over from the year of the ox to the year of the tiger. So it was kind of a good time to really launch a book called Tiger's Tail. So I've got this, you know, year of the tiger sticker. I want to get into people's hands. But I think once we've gotten that done, the really cool project that I want to get, and maybe I'll name this one after the Crazy 88, right? When we get 88 backers, we'll do what I'm calling the Comics Fu Reader. And that's going to be a little mini comic that's going to feature comics specifically by Kung Fu masters.
Cool.
So I don't know if you guys can think of anyone who might fit that specific, you know, type of creator, but I could think of at least one.
We know one.
Yeah. So I'll say it. So the first several pages of Shadow Ghost, kind of like a sneak preview of it, will be in the Comics Fu Reader, as long as we can get to that stretch goal. So if you want a kind of a sneak peek at what the book looks like and what's coming down the road, as well as some other books and other creators that are going to be involved in it, definitely check out Patrick's Kickstarter for Tiger's Tail.
Nice.
Right.
Nice.
The key thing I want to emphasize is that, you know, these are comics by Kung Fu masters. I wanted to, you know, not just Curtis, like each one of these people teaches Kung Fu. They've had a lifetime, like, exploring their particular martial art, and then they are seeking to convey it in comics form. So Curtis, I've done this work so that you know you're not alone in your quest.
And I thought it was exclusive to the Kung Fu Master comic book creator, but apparently there's some stiff competition.
It just so happens you're the tip of the spear.
You were first. That's what matters, right? So before we get on to the topic, I do have one final question. Patrick?
Yes.
Can you take him?
Oh.
That should be the next stream.
I would be happy to take Curtis to any comic convention or comic shop he wants to. I'll take him out for sushi. I'll take him out to a dim sum.
Oh,
and then when we get to the Leitai, I'm sure he'll take me out in a heartbeat.
Well, I'm looking forward to the sushi, that's for sure. So
what was that, Tommy?
No, that was Curtis.
Oh, I thought I heard you say something. Okay, so tonight we are talking about black and white versus color comics. If you've done independent comics at all, or if you paid attention to independent comics remotely at all, you've seen a lot of black and white stuff. And I know that attitudes and thoughts kind of cover the whole spectrum about black and white, particularly black and white. But tonight we'll talk about some of the pros and cons, some of the thoughts that we think. So maybe we'll just start off kind of toss out the question: do you have a preference, and if so, why do you look black and white? I mean, why?
I mean, I would expect my comics to be color every month.
Yeah.
I'm very
Why
happy.
Do you expect
I mean, I love black and white, obviously, but I'll be very happy to buy a black and white comic. I don't think I'd want them black and white every single month. I'd be like, oh, well, you can do color, so give me some color. I want to see the color.
Right.
But yeah, as an artist, yeah, I do like original art and looking at things in black and white.
Mm.
But yeah, give me color. I'll pay for
You
it.
know,
Give me it.
being an inker mostly, for me, if it's a black and white book, it needs to be rendered a little more. It needs to be a little more to it than just the color book without color in it, right? It needs to
Yeah.
have a little more flair to it to me. But no, I love black and white books just as much as I do color book. You know that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But
So Curtis and I were talking just a little bit for the stream started, and Curtis, I'm going to steal your line. Curtis, I was holding up.
Give it. You're messing them up.
So Curtis is smart. He can think of another one. So I forget what I was holding up now. I picked up Not Brand X, right? I picked up an old copy of Not Brand X, right? And it's all flat colors in there. And Curtis made a comment. He goes, "Yeah, because all the rendering was done in the line work." And I'm like, "Yeah, there's a lot of truth in that." So maybe the question to you, Tommy, is it, do you ink something? If you know it's going to be in black and white, do you ink it a little differently?
Yeah, it'd be more of is it penciled a little different, knowing if it was going to be in black and white. I think I'll try to put a little more effort into putting a little more texture into it, to give it a little more feel, to spot those shadows a little more. Because like I think what we talked about last year, it seemed like last week with Roberta, it's like I really hate seeing pencils where all of the they want me to ink all the shadows and stuff, and I'm like, no, let's let the color put in all that good stuff, so whoever's coloring it can have some fun too. But would I go in and take somebody's pencils and try, not without the editor saying to do that and the penciler being okay with it, because you do that, the penciler is going to be pissed off if you just start over rendering everything, putting stuff in there that the penciler. Just ask Mr. Pete if I started going in and just started adding like what he's drawing here. If I was to ink this and just start putting in, cracks all over the ground and putting stuff on that throne. And and adding shadows to where he didn't have shadows, and cross hatching here and there and everywhere and all kind of stuff. Man, Pete wouldn't want me to ink him anymore.
Well, I have to tell you about the private email he sent me, Tom.
I mean, now he's brought it up. No.
Thomas is not pulling this part. He needs to add some more to cross hatching. I'm drawing everything.
So, Roberta, as a resident colorist, what do you think about black and white art?
You'd be surprised. I love black and white too.
Well, I don't know that that's surprising. You're an artist. I don't know that surprises me too much.
Yeah, I mean, it's all depending, I suppose, on whether it feels balanced as an art piece or not. Because if you put texture in everywhere, it ends up removing focus. So a good inker can show where to draw your eye. And that's really all it takes. And that's what the colorist does, is just kind of fleshes that out.
Yeah. So I guess this is a curious question for you, Roberta. When you're coloring, can you look at, of course, you've colored a lot of pages with a lot of different artists, and we know that Tommy is a wonderful inker because he's here on the stream with us, right?
Yeah, and he has a range of different
moods and
styles, and
in your smorgasbord of past coloring, can you tell when an inker knows what he's doing, he or she, right? Can you tell when an inker knows what they're doing when you're sitting down to color it? And what are some of the signals to you that I'm not sure this inker really knows what they're doing?
Well, inconsistent light source would be one.
Oh,
that is pretty much my job, is to think in light, and so is the inker.
Yeah.
So,
And
you
yeah,
know, if
sometimes I
I'm
don't
not
do
in
it.
sync, you know, I don't know what he was thinking or she was thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So that is what happens is I analyze the page and I do have to know what were they saying, you know, was the starting point.
Mm.
Because sometimes you have to tell the story in light. And when it is, you know, too heavy on the ink, I would say sometimes that makes it very difficult to show enough rendering yourself as a colorist.
Right.
So, especially when they go down and say, you know, I've got an awful lot of dark ink because this is the shadow part, so everything's going to be cross-hatched. And then if you put a dark color in there, then it
All,
takes
all the
over the whole
cross-hatching is
thing.
lost, right?
Yeah, you can't see it. And so you don't want to go light in that area either. So it's difficult. You know, they have to give a little bit of room, a little bit of open space in there and trust that the colorist isn't going to just go to town. And yeah, I really think that I have been working with really great inkers, you know, since I started here. It's been important to me that I can see, you know, in an awful lot of quick judgment call what I want to do with the page. That's the difference. Because if I'm studying it so much that I don't really know, then I'm wasting an awful lot of time making decisions.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's happened. I mean, you know, it's not everything's perfect, but I'd say, you know, the more you get the feel for it, you know, what they're trying to do with the page, the easier it is for the colorist to say, I know what I want to bring out.
Yeah.
And I know what they wanted to bring out to tell the story. So it's great. It's almost like we're on a different page if you're trying to have a black and white comic, because you do have to allow for all of that texture to be there without overwhelming the vision and the characters that you're trying to make them more important.
Yeah. Yeah, got a couple comments here. I got another question to ask you, and then we'll see Curtis and Patrick what they think. Ryan Permisson says, "Hello, everyone. I prefer color to black and white, but then again, I haven't read any black and white comics yet." Ryan, we will take care of that. We will put something in your hands that's in black and white. I think some of it is. I think you have to get right. Have any of you ever read Cerebus?
Just a little bit, just like the first leg of it.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, the first few issues of Cerebus was very much a spoof of Conan. And then probably, I don't know how many issues it took, 3, 4, something like that. Then it developed its own personality. And, you know, over time, Dave Sim and Gerhardt, I don't remember if he ever had another name other than that. They developed this really, really nice black and white look, and there was graduated tones, a lot of zipatone, a lot of grays in it, and it worked. It was perfect. I can't imagine even as covers at the time were in black and white. Stephanie says, "I love black and white, especially for adult dystopian, but as an elementary school not librarian, the only black and white I see off the top of my head are Peanuts and Calvin and Hobbes comic strips. Agree if you go black and white if you go black and white, Bookcraft inks should be on top." Yeah. And I think you know, I think kids like the colors that pop. You know, they want to see stuff pop out at them. Curtis, Patrick, any preferences?
Go and take it, Patrick. I'll jump in after you.
I mean, yeah, I think a lot of it will come down to genre, you know, and to like format. So like Stephanie said about dystopian, I mean, I think there are great black and white graphic novels and great black and white comics out. But I mean, speaking from when I was, you know, doing some indies in the 90s, when I was using Do you remember like the duotone paper where
Oh,
you
yeah.
could do inks and then you could put that photographic chemical to make more patterns come out?
Or
You know, so-
Zipatone, those whole pattern, those whole sheets that you can peel and stick. All that
Yeah,
stuff.
that too. Yeah, I got really good with the X-Acto knife specifically.
Oh,
for
yeah.
that. But you know, so it's just like, I mean, those were just ways because budget prevented color, so black and white artists tried to push what they could forward. But then, yes, I got a few somewhere. Looks like you could. That needs a new tip. I can see the square.
It's pretty old, and I haven't used it in. Well, I can't even tell you how long it's been since I've used this. But it still sits in my front drawer right here.
I find all sorts of uses for mine. Not all of them are advised though.
Tommy's got a fan. Bicoletta bike shop. Oh,
Yeah,
there you
it's the folks that worked on your bike.
Oh, very cool. It
Yeah.
says, we appreciate the love. Look at that.
No, not a problem. That's
I am
probably Brenda. Thank you, Brenda. Thank you, Jimmy. I'm glad you
I am
guys bought them.
sorry. I how do you say the name?
They're gonna kill me for messing it up. But I think it's it means bicycle shop. So it's bicycle shop. Is what they
Okay.
tell me what it means. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not sure what that first one is. I can read bike shop, but I'm not sure what the first word is.
Yeah.
Okay,
cool.
I'm sorry. Continue on there.
That's all right.
What do you think of like how color is used for Hellboy? I mean, that's like almost a black and white comic, but still
Spot
it's
color.
in color.
It's in color. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for black and white, I mean, it again, it depends, but it's definitely like the good thing is to know the history of how things develop. It's just like black and white film, you know. Sometimes it's that saying that necessity is the mother of invention, you know.
Yeah.
And so I think that especially during the first indie boom back in the late 80s, 90s, it was necessary for budget,
Yes.
And then you get to the point where printing and digital printing, things like that, become easier for the masses. Then it's not so much something of necessity, it's something of preference, and that's where you see that kind of shift. And so that's why you have books like Sin City by Miller, which I think is just like, especially the early issues, just freaking phenomenal. Mignola, I could see any of Mac Mignola's books in black and white. I don't need color in them. The color's an accent, if anything, to it, and then you see kind of interesting things in between, like in Japanese manga. And if you folks have seen like manga's published like weekly as an anthology. It's like a phone book, and it's on really low end newsprint, and it's all black and white. And every week they'll give one book 3 color pages for their part of the anthology. And sometimes it's not even color; it's like 3 tones. It's like a flesh tone, a gray, a black, and a white. And
it's always in the very front, isn't it?
To kind of entice you.
Yeah, those guys use a lot of for the most of the time a lot of heavy use of those tonal patterns and stuff to do all of the shading and stuff. They do a really cool job. Love that stuff. Yeah.
Definitely. And it also has to do with the aesthetic. The more you look at the Japanese manga and stuff like that, you see inherent in it Japanese screen printing and the idea of those flat colors and flat fabrics, whether it's in their color versions or their black and white stuff. So I think it just depends, but I really like both quite a bit. So yeah, that'd be my take.
Yeah, I think so let's talk about let's get this little comment before. Aaron Humphrey says, I heard an interview that Mike Magnolia
It's the alternate dimension version.
Uses color as a storytelling device. He really does consider where and how he uses color. I can see that in his Hellboy work. I mean, he's more of a spot color guy, right? And he kind of, it's all black and white, but then it's just spot color.
Yeah, and even the colors are always subdued. I mean, like Hellboy, when you look at it, like it's like very muted reds and like olive greens and nothing bright or really ostentatious. It's very specific.
I like some of those Sin City books where it was just like with the blood red here and there spot color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is great. Great stuff.
So here's a question. I don't want Roberta to start with this one, and
Uh-oh.
she'll know
Mhm.
why.
Told you
She'll
you're
know
in trouble.
why after I ask the question. So what do you guys think about black and white comics that later add color?
Well, from experience, sometimes those zip tones are a problem. There is an acknowledgement that it was meant to be black and white.
Yeah.
So there does have to be, a little bit of a different reduction of the normal coloring. I think I would do with the, because it was deliberately made. I have to keep it a little bit more close, and try to reduce my tendency to put, a texture here and there.
Mm.
So I have to be careful with it because it can change the focus really quick.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't the intention of just giving me a hint so that I can do more on it. So I think it looks great. It just takes a different approach to being a little bit more minimal, I think, with the textures and with the contrast.
Wouldn't it also matter if the black and white book had a lot of like zipatone patterns here and there that were doing shadows and this, that, and the other? Because then at that point you're like being a coloring book, right? You're just kind of saying, well, you got already zipatone across the face. I'm just going to put flesh tone there because it's already got a shadow on it.
Well, that's what has to happen. Yeah, you
Yeah,
can't
'cause
put a
you
gradation
can't
in the
shadows.
middle of a zip tone.
Yeah.
I tried
Yeah.
once and it doesn't work.
I'd point out if you a really good example of navigating that was, you don't hear enough about him nowadays, but Steve Olaf and Ollie Optics, who were like some of the pioneers of computer coloring back in the day.
Yeah.
That's the name I was thinking of last week, and I couldn't think of the name. There you go. Week late. Thanks, Curtis. Week late.
Yeah, he was great, and his version of Akira, when it got localized to the US, and he was able to navigate all the zipatone and that kind of really rendered architecture was phenomenal.
Yeah, they use their own software, right? Didn't he develop his own coloring software? Yeah.
Yeah, he.
So I think they ended up switching to Photoshop at some point, but I think he developed something before Photoshop. Yeah, I don't remember. Yeah, something like that.
It's kind of tragic that that's never been collected because that was such a unique take on the medium, on applying color.
Definitely
to black and white.
It's in black and white now. It's not available in that color version. I guess the rights or whatever. Yeah. Steve Olaf pulled it off really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that right there set history, just that approach. And
Wubba's in the house.
Oh yay, Wubba.
Wubba said, "Hi y'all. What's up,
y'all?
Yes.
Let's see. Here we go. Okay. So Fred Corto says, I find black and white boring. Color brings comic books. But that's so here's a thank you, Fred. So Fred's one of our backers, you guys. So here's the thing, though, and I know Tommy has experienced this because he and I both did black and white comics, together back in the day a bunch. And that's not an unusual comment,
really, yeah. Sitting at the table.
I love black and white because I love to see, I love to study the lines. But I think from readers' perspectives, they look at it and think, oh, it's not finished yet, and where are the colors? We think of Superman, we think of red and blue popping off the page. We think of Spider-Man. We think of, red and blue popping off the page,
Yeah, good. Setting up at shows, throughout the, 90s and, and you had your black and white book there, and then you had a couple of color books. The color books tend to always sell because those certain folks just want the color.
Yeah.
Color book, yeah.
There was something about black and white, more to, I guess, to the sort of the casual reader, that just didn't feel like it was up to the snuff of production wise or professionalism or something
Yeah,
like that.
I never understood that because we
Me
always
either.
ended up, the black and white stuff. We always ended up putting, minus the color. The penciler and the inker always put in a little more effort to just render out all those. At least I did anyway.
Yeah.
To try to get some more because you needed to try to jam on it a little more, make it a little more.
Well, you had to compensate because you knew there was going to be no color.
Yep.
It's kind of the Wizard of Oz effect, right? Like people associate escapism with color. So, but you could, I think of an artist like David Mack, right? He got his start doing black kabuki in black and white, and yet now, you can't even imagine him doing black and white. He's so much about using color, and he uses his color like sound effects. It's like not just to show, the color of someone's jacket, right? It's not just Jessica Jones' jacket, it's purple. It's the whole effect he's going for.
When we started Kablam digital printing, what was it, 10, 15 years ago, however long it's been, it was primarily black and white, but, we made it so it was easy for people to do color. And now it's, a good 80% of it is color. It's probably, 80% of it was black and white at the time. And now if a black and white book comes through, it's like, oh, look, here's a black and white book.
So now, would you say now it's more of an oddity than a common?
Yeah, there's still bunches of it, but it's mostly everything is color.
Do you think that has to do with like the accessibility of digital printing now?
It is, and the fact that companies like us make it so you can just print one if you wanted, so you're not having to print 1,000 copies of a color book that you're only going to, maybe, in a good year sell 50, that kind of thing. So you can only, if you just needed 25, so it's a whole lot cheaper to put the effort and. Basically you have X amount of money that you're putting towards your comic, right? So you can kind of go, well, now I don't have to have as much money for printing. I can put that towards a colorist, and then and shift everything around a little bit. Maybe that's, or it could be like what Roland said a while ago. Is people, you're sitting at your table and somebody walks by and you got a color book and a black and white book, and they're going, oh, I'll take the color book.
Yeah.
I'd say one of the first black and whites that I actually liked, that I actually thought was a good black and white, was the original run of Cat and Mouse. I would go, I would go visit my dad in Hawaii in this really great comic book shop called Jellies, and he would be working, so he would give me like $20, and I could go play Street Fighter at the arcade, and I could go to Jellies and buy some comic books. And I would buy like X-Men, but then the other book would be Cat and Mouse, and it was just such a solid book. And I think it offered something that none of the mainstream books really had, and so and it was just fortuitous because like 2 or 3 years later, I met Roland and I was working under him. So it's pretty amazing how things work out. But Cat and Mouse is a great example of good black and white, the original run.
Yeah.
You got the job. You got the job, Curtis. Good job.
Thanks, Pete.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So I mean, let's shift and talk about that for a second. I mean, and a lot of that had to do, and it was already somebody already touched on it a little bit, but a lot of it was financial.
Yeah.
And that may be why fans kind of looked at it as not quite professional. I don't know, but when you're making a comic book and you're not at Marvel or DC, you're trying to fund it on your own. You got to look at the money. You got to look. I mean, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Their whole start was in black and white, but it's because they couldn't afford to print in color. Because
our print per copy is, because it's digital, is probably more than what it would be if you could go traditional and print, per copy of 3,000 books, right?
Right.
But because you don't have to print 3,000 books, you don't have to have the capital for that amount of, so it's easier to afford to get somebody to do the colors and then, only print what you need.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So what a lot of people don't realize is that, you can print 3,000 copies at a cheaper price per unit.
Yeah.
But you got to come up with the money to print 3,000 copies, and that's a lot of money.
And on an independent book, you're getting. I mean, it'd be great if we could all hit 3,000 books right off the bat, but you got to build up to it. So,
yes.
yeah.
And so you could do, and I haven't done the math. Those who know me know that math and I don't get along really well, but I would almost be willing to bet that you could do, and we're talking about pre-digital printing, to do a color book opposed to a black and white book. I would say probably 2/3 again your cost. I mean, more than half again, 2/3 again. Whatever the total cost is, 1/3 of that you could print your black and white comic in, if not less than that.
Yeah.
And so, when you were looking at it, you're like, hey, well, and of course back then you had to get all the plates, you had to get, and of course if you're black and white, it was just one plate. And that's right there, right off the bat. That's $400 compared to $100,
And then with minimum runs, 3,000, 5,000 copies, that kind of thing.
Yep.
And you knew you only needed several hundred, and you were going to sit on these books. Yeah. It just wasn't worth it at the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Aaron Humphrey said, I have heard that colored comics generally sell better than black and white books. Do you all feel that way as well? I'd say that for the most part, that's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Based off of what we print, like I said, we print way more color books than black and white.
There are exceptions, of course.
Obviously, yeah.
The Walking Dead.
Yeah, that book is crazy, right?
But here you go. You look in the top, and I haven't looked in a while, but if you examine the top via Diamond, right, the top 100 comic books sold, as far as I know, The Walking Dead was the only one in there, and it was in the top 15 for a good bit of its run. But everything else around it was all in color. So I don't know.
Let's see if I can find the list.
I don't know that Aaron's asked, do we feel that way? I don't know that that's a feeling so much as a fact. I just think that there are always exceptions, and I think The Walking Dead was one. I think Cerebus in its day was probably one. Bone was a black and white comic. I know Patrick mentioned Bone earlier, but Bone was a black and white comic in its day, and I loved Bone as a black and white book.
And remarkable that it was aimed so, it was such an all ages kind of book at a time when that wasn't really a thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I mean, you and I can read it, but you could also hand it to, your 8-year-old niece or nephew and not have to worry about it,
Well, I think the other thing to take into is it's not, business wise, it's not really necessarily how much it's sold, it's how much profit, right? So if you're able to recoup more of your cost by doing black and white versus not in color, that's definitely something to consider as well. So you never know.
Yeah. Well, I like this comment here. Hey, Eric, what's up? Eric says, the older I get, the more I seem to almost prefer black and white books versus color. As a kid, color all the way. What do you guys think? You think age has anything to do with for you guys?
I'd say. I mean, I kind of faced this particularly with Tiger's Tail when it was appearing in the Kung Fu magazine. It was mostly black and white. I mean, the magazine at the time was mostly black and white, and we had to pick and choose how many color pages we could fit in there. And by the time it shifted where the magazine could be fully color, I had already, removed Tiger's Tail from that equation. But now bringing it back to, wanting to get it to modern readers today, it seems like even though I originally wanted it as a black and white comic, if I want kids to really read it, right, it's going to need to be in color. So it's up to me to find a method to communicate the color in it. Since I'm doing the color myself, I have to create a new palette or a new use color like part of the story.
Definitely. And just for those watching that, because only some people are in both spheres of Kung Fu and comic books, Kung Fu Tai Chi was a really prolific magazine, and I think your comic book we're talking like the early '90s, right? Was when the comic book actually was in the back of it. So, and
Yeah.
you were there for like what, over 20 years, or I'm trying to think, how long?
The magazine, lasted 25 years before it ended, right, in 2020. So the comic was there up until the year 2000. The invention of the internet kind of killed that print quality. But yeah, so in the back pages, right, I had one black and white page. Occasionally, as we were shuffling color and black and white pages, I could squeeze a color page in for the comic. But it was a black and white concept, it was something that kind of worked. It was that same way that, what I was striving for with Bone, etc., or Cerberus, right? Trying to create a black and white world. It was all about yin and yang. But kids these days, they need the color.
Yeah. Pete, you were about to say?
I was. Yeah, what was I going to say?
You were going to say
kids can't appreciate they can't really appreciate all the stuff that goes into drawing and making a comic book. So they get distracted by the color, which, it's fine. But as you get older, I think you can appreciate it a bit more. You'd hope.
Yeah.
So then you might take a bit more. It's like with anything, as you mature, you start to understand things a bit better and can appreciate all the effort and what's gone into making it.
Yeah.
So
well, and would you say it would be similar to watching Bugs Bunny as an adult now? Did you watch Bugs Bunny as a kid?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It has new meaning to you, doesn't it?
I don't know.
Oh,
it's still Bugs Bunny, just with a carrot. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's still funny. I don't know if I don't know. I'd have to watch Bugs Bunny.
Yeah. I know that I will watch Bugs Bunny sometime and go, wait, did they just tell? That's like an adult joke.
Pepe Le Pew has a different point of reference, that's for sure. So
I hate that Pepe was canceled.
I know.
Oh, that's I love Pepe Le Pew. Let's see here. Let's see. Go back to some of these comments here. Aaron said, I actually prefer black and white more myself, especially really done black and white books. And then Eric kind of followed that up with, but that also depends on the art. When he was talking about, he preferred black and white books. Some art does better in black and white. And I think, that's kind of what we're all kind of saying here, is that it does depend on the art. That I think that I see some black and white art today and I look at it and go, oh, this was drawn for color. Mm-hmm. It's wide open and everything. There's almost nothing there. Sometimes it almost looks like, if it's not inked well enough, it almost looks like a coloring book. And, that's no stab at coloring books, but kind of is, I guess.
I think one of the things, my two favorite books in black and white were, Turtles and of course Cat and Mouse. That the style of both those books really fit well. Like Eastman and Laird, they had a really gritty, textured, rough, jagged kind of look. And Mitch Bird's work on Cat and Mouse, the thing that I always found so fascinating is when you look at his art, he had volumes. Like you could actually understand the shape and the volume of the masses of everything, the muscles and all that. And it fit really well. It really does. It really does depend, on the book and the artist, definitely. Yeah.
Well, I think Mitch was, I can't, I'm not going to speak for him or anything, but I think when Mitch was penciling the Cat and Mouse, at least when I started inking it, he was, penciling it to be a black and white book.
Yes.
So he would go through and, do that typical cross-hatching background stuff that you don't really do that kinds of stuff when it's a color book, because that the color is gonna make the walls shadow come into the and all that kind of stuff. It's just not necessary in a color book to do all that cross-hatching line work and stuff. But I think Mitch
was real good at that.
Oh yeah, no, Mitch was great. I think that's where I ended up picking up all my little tricks and stuff from Ink and Mitch.
Yeah. I met a big Mitch fan today at Olo. He was walking by and he spotted Cat and Mouse. He goes, "Oh, I love the Mitch Bird stuff," and so we just started talking. And he was a huge Mitch Bird fan, and I'm like, "Very cool, good stuff."
Yeah, I'll see Mitch this weekend.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah. At where will you see Mitch, Tommy?
At Pensacon, assuming
right.
that everything is still going on, which it looks like it is. It looks like the world's opening up a little more every day for whatever reason.
It's Florida.
I think it's everywhere. You heard what Universal's doing? We can talk about this later.
Yeah. So yeah, Pensacon, you'll be there. Barry will be there, right?
Yep, Jennifer, Stephen Butler will be there,
yeah.
plus a bunch of other folks. Some of the other folks that did some Silverline stuff. John Dale didn't do any Silverline stuff, did he?
John Dale inked a little bit of the last issue of Cat and Mouse.
Did he? Yep.
Yeah.
And then
That was it.
Roland Paris, what did he do
yeah.
for Cat and Mouse? Yep, he's going to be there.
So Roland inked a little bit of the first issue of Silverstorm, and Roland was actually one of the. I think it was in one of the books somewhere. Roland actually was one of the first guys that did a sketch of Demon who wasn't me.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yep. Derek's going to be there. Derek never did anything.
No, he never did his Silverline stuff. No.
But yeah, all those guys.
Yeah.
Brian LeBlanc's going to be there. He never did any Silverline stuff, but you know who Brian is, I believe. Yeah. Bunch of other folks.
So come out and see Tommy and Barry and the gang. Stephanie says, but why do kids tolerate black and white in comic strips?
Maybe because they think it's supposed to be black and white. Is that because I was going to say that a while ago. I think Stephanie's a guy or a girl. I'm not sure. I wasn't paying attention.
Stephanie,
can I give you a technical reason?
Yes.
Because of the dot screen, it's just very large. So when there is small detail, it starts looking like chunky dots when there's color in it.
Yeah.
So I always thought it looked cleaner.
Tommy,
is it a question of access? I remember being a kid and just loving the newspaper for that 1 or 2 pages of comics. I didn't care about the rest of the newspaper.
Yeah, I didn't care.
So, regardless of it being black and white, it was comics, for free that I could grab. But then, Sunday it was in color. And then, if I was going to spend my money on a comic, I wanted it in color, until I was a little more sophisticated in my tastes.
Well, I think all those strips, for the most part, were black and white. So I think we just grew up with them being mostly black and white.
They were black and white Monday through Saturday. And
exactly.
On Sunday they were in color.
Yep.
Then when you get the compilation, right, the publisher, it's much easier for the publisher to just print them all black and white.
Yeah.
Than to try and color them all. What publisher would want to do that?
Yeah. Stephanie says, sorry, I got to put it up there. I'm going to read it without, but Stephanie says, I'm going to ask my kids.
That's important market research. We need to know.
Yeah.
Ask if, so I guess her kids, they don't mind. It's like simple Saturday morning cartoons, they're so, could they, well, you wouldn't want a TV show being in black and white, I guess.
But there were TV shows in black and white.
That's true. That simpler line art, that makes it a whole lot easier. It's more cartoony. It's, it's more color booky looking, so maybe it's just easier to look at, I guess. It's just in your mind's eye, as if it's a less rendered book, it can be black and white, right? No? I don't know. That doesn't make any sense.
Didn't somebody share in one of our messages something about there was like, I forget which artist, but somebody was saying like books with purple on the cover sell more, and there was like very specific things on what there was like that usually used to sell better. It was interesting. I just remember that one part stood out.
Was it purple or green?
It was some
I
color,
think
but they
it was
said
probably purple. 'Cause
Yeah.
Purple tends to make you feel like there's some kind of supernatural event.
yeah. Yeah,
So you
some-
think of that.
Plus,
Yeah.
it makes you feel important.
yeah.
The royalty aspect.
Yes, exactly. I mean, there's whole books, right? There's whole books written about color theory and you know why McDonald's roofs are red. You know, so there's a whole other layer of like how color is used. So I mean, that's always available in comics too, right? Why
Yeah,
there's a reason why the
it's all
superheroes.
an emotional attachment to color.
Yeah.
That seems to be some kind of reality.
And culturally too, it's like, like when I was from my martial arts school, when I was branding it, I chose purple as the color, but that's because I wanted to use red, but because red is like for Chinese is like very positive, but for, US, it's not always considered as positive or it's more aggressive, and blue is considered really positive for a Western kind of background, but Asian, not so much. Sometimes blue is associated like white with death. So purple was the perfect mixture of the two, so it's interesting how different colors, different things fit different cultures.
And purple's cool. Yeah.
It is a cool
Yeah, it
color.
is. Ask Prince, he knows. He knew.
I
You
mean,
knew. There you go.
you could see it in like the number of bank logos that generally have blue, versus the number of food logos that have red and maybe yellow.
True. That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you
Well-
want to swap out the art, I'm willing
Yes,
to
please.
share.
Yeah. Roberta,
Thanks.
you want to jump up there?
Yeah, sure.
Excellent. So actually, what you guys were saying brings us to this next question here. Eric says, "Do you think people respond better to the bright primary colors of the '80s, or to the huge variety of color in comics now? Is more better or worse?" Roberta.
Oh, I can answer that. We got used to too much color in the 90s for sure. But there was a backlash to that eventually.
Yeah, I think so.
I think you can go crazy. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I think
Well,
eventually it's like you want to figure out a reason for the color. And if it's just a rainbow on every page, you just don't know what to do, and I get overwhelmed.
We went from like image rainbows to like vertigo brown.
Well, we talked a little bit
All right.
last week.
This has got to be talked about because this page, let me whap it out. Look at that.
Wabba!
Glorious.
This is so good.
I love the
Look at
cools
that.
and the warms that you did in that middle section. The warm coming from the doorway and the cool coming from the darkness.
So
Very
this,
nice touch.
I could go anywhere with this. Thank you, Curtis. I just was like, where am I gonna bring these guys out? Because I want them in the dark, but I also don't want it to be missing.
Needs more purple. Needs
Yeah.
It'll somewhere.
Doesn't have enough purple. I went too green.
That looks great.
But they are chasing Cat. So this is a Cat and Mouse issue 4 that I'm trying to get a good feel for, like where I'm gonna start with her. This is Widowmaker, and she's got to dance a little more than what I did,
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to put something special behind her. And
This is a comment just for Roberta. It says, "Colors done right."
aw, thanks. There's a lot going on here, so I'm gonna have to take a lot of thought on color here, because this is working a little, but I'm kind of getting in my spot where I don't want it to be like all the same tone, So I started bringing in this yellow, and now I've done it because now I'm going to have to put a little more. Once you do that, and then I've got to get going. So that's where I'm at right now. Is like, I tried this yellow and I like it, so now I got to
looks good.
bring it through.
And your complementary colors are solid. You got the right there in the middle is that complementary of blue and orange.
Yeah.
Great choice. Really pops.
Well, it's such a great example of like using color to like tell the story in a different way, to like add another layer to the overall storytelling.
Totally.
And this is so good that it doesn't, you really, like, if you can see in here how much texture is in here,
Yeah.
I don't want to take away from that,
Yeah.
so I just got to really hint at that, at the light.
Totally.
I put too much of a blend and it's going to darken it too much. So
That's kind of
Yeah.
a sense of maturity as an artist, right? Is that ability to have restraint where it's needed, right? In the beginning, it's like, what can I do, right?
you want to do everything,
every highlight,
color it all.
lens flare.
Lens flare. So I think that ties into kind of Eric's question about the primary colors. I know that so when I look at these, like I said, I picked up this Not Brand X today. I look at these and there's these colors. Roberta, would you say I'm fair in calling these flat colors? It's all flat, right?
Mhm.
Can you see it? Yeah.
Well, you're not very big, so let me see if I can get
I
yours.
don't really want
your
to make
bit a
you
little
very
bigger.
big. Here, how's that?
Oh yeah. Okay, wait.
Yeah.
It's got to draw in a bit.
Actually, it is.
Sorry, hold it still.
Yeah.
Yeah, mostly flat.
Yeah. So, all right, how do I get
But
you
there's
back
also
up
an awful lot of text. And I think that
Yes.
you forgive it because if you spend so much time rendering beautiful artwork and there's so much to read on the page, then the time spent on the art with the eyeballs is gone.
there? Right.
So
Yeah.
that's my opinion. For something like that, it's okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think too. We talk about the '90s. I think I like I kind of like that midway. If we're looking back that far, I kind of look like that point between the flat color of the '80s and then the over saturated colors of the middle '90s. When you look at I see a lot of that stuff in the cheap boxes, a lot of that '90s glut stuff, and you flip through it and it just all looks so deadgum muddy. It's just like, what's wrong with Superman's blue? Why do you got to make it blue mud?
I think it was an evolving art,
Have you guys ever seen that movie Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story, where it's basically like a parody of Johnny Cash?
No.
And there's a
Sounds
part where
good.
he gets really, stoned and stuff. And he basically, it's that point where an artist doesn't have any restraint, where all he has around him is yes people.
Uh-oh.
And he's making his magnum opus song that he's been working on for like 6 months. And he has cymbals, gongs, flutes, a whole orchestra, electric guitar. And then he starts screaming for more people to come out with didgeridoos, and they're all playing. It's just this complete mess, And it's that perfect example of like no restraint, when you can do anything and you just
That's funny.
Yeah, it's a great.
What's it called again? I want to look it up.
Dewey Cox, Walk Hard. Yeah, it's pretty funny. Pretty funny movie.
It's funny.
That is funny. Yeah. Anybody else have thoughts about primary colors, the '80s versus the colors now?
Well,
What do you think?
Well, I mean, wasn't some of it has to do with printing too? I mean, wasn't that also like certain colors would read better with that level of newsprint printing, And the other thing I was just going to remark in general, we were talking about rendering and stuff, and I'm kind of seeing this more and more with my book is just so much of it is where do you want the eye to track?
Right.
If you want them to linger, on a big splash page, that's a great place to put tons of render and detail and modeling, but if it's a quick action sequence and the eye is supposed to travel across quicker, you may want to have it a little bit more flat or make it more subdued,
Yeah.
Not every panel is created alike. And when you work digitally, that's really important to remember, because it's really easy to zoom in and get caught in the details. And then when you zoom out, you're like, oh, wow, this panel's only going to be like this big when somebody reads it, right?
Yeah.
So
It's
so much
hard
of
to
it,
keep perspective when you have this big screen.
right? Yeah. It's like, why am I rendering, this guy's shoelace, like in all the detail? Not necessary. Back off,
Yeah.
Well, if you put a dot, then that's fine.
Yeah.
What I do notice is you can say a lot with a very small little hint, you know, so it doesn't have to be a rendering, but just like a dot of, you know, a shine or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just, and your brain fills out all the rest of that, you know,
Point.
so you don't really need it.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think we talked about again. We talked a little bit about it last week when we were talking about color choices and things like that. And you know, one of the things that I love, one of the many things I love about what Roberta does is that, you know, and you know, I know Pete's talked about this kind of thing too. Is that, you know, these are comic books. The wall doesn't have to be a beige color like most people's walls are, right? If you to convey a mood or a tone, you can make the background red. You can say, yeah, but the wall behind them is not red. Well, it doesn't really matter. It's okay because it conveys it conveys mood, it conveys tone. What Roberta is trying to do with her color is to enhance any kind of emotions that's already there. And sometimes it means the wall is going to be purple.
Yeah.
And I like
Right.
the purple wall. I will defend the purple wall.
Are you guys familiar with Max Landis? He's a director. He's the son of John Landis, the director that did like American Werewolf in London and, you know, Trading Places. And he was talking about how him and his dad had a conversation about vampires in movies. And so he asked, I guess he asked his dad, well, the dad asked him, teaching him screenwriting, he said, how many ways can you kill a vampire? And so the son goes, you know, stake through the heart, you know, holy water, sunlight. And the dad goes, no. He goes, you can kill them any way you want because they don't freaking exist.
Good point. I love that.
Isn't that funny? It's like, oh yeah, I got to get out of that, out of your headspace.
Yeah,
don't
go
exist.
wild.
That's
a
funny.
really good point.
I'd be curious to ask all of you as creators, because we talked about it, kind of all of us approaching it as the reader, as the fan. As a creator, do you have a preference, or like even for those of you that were doing black and white books, you know, which there's quite a few in this segment, was it just, were you happy working on a black and white book, or were the whole time you're just saying, oh gosh, I just wish I could do this darn thing in color and I'm settling for black and white? As creators, where does everybody fit on that spectrum? Or I'm just curious what your guys' take on it is.
Well, that's a good one.
Thank you.
Really good one.
I practiced that for a while.
He's got it written down on the list.
Exactly.
My own creator books back in the day, or you're talking about just working for other people's stuff? When it was other people's stuff, it didn't matter to me. But when I was doing my own Zomboy and all that kind of stuff back in the day, which was where there were black and white books, I wish that they were in color, but I knew that I couldn't afford that. So you can ask Roland, those books are filled with Zipatone here and there and dot pattern. I was using Photoshop to do digital zips on everything. And so I could afford, you looked at those books and you go, man, Thomas, you spent $1,000 worth of Zipatone. Like, no, it was all in Photoshop. I Photoshop zipped that whole book. All those books. Yep. Yep. Even the cross, zip that was crossed over the top where it looked like it was hand laid Zipatone where you were trying to do crazy patterns and stuff. I still did it all in Photoshop.
This segment's sponsored by Zipatone.
Yeah, the Zipatone. Yeah. But no, I wish I could have afforded it but for anything else, it was whatever freelance work, whatever they wanted me to do. So
that's cool.
I recently gave Tommy a huge stack.
Yes.
Of Zipatone. I found this in my collection of stuff in my garage. I was going through it. I'm like, what's this big box here? It's a big flat box, but it was big. I'm like, what is this box? I opened it like holy crap! Look at all this Zipatone I have here. Yeah. So I asked Tommy, I said, hey, man, I know that most of what you do doesn't use Zipatone anymore, and it's all on computer, but do you think you could use this? He's like, yeah, man, I'll take
I'll keep it. Yeah, that's
it.
very cool to have. Don't know
I
what
don't
you're gonna
even
do,
know what to
but it's
do
very
with
cool to
it.
have.
That's something.
Yeah.
Well, I'll ask your question, Curtis. For me, yeah, absolutely. I wanted it in color.
Yeah.
Because I think there was still some of that stigma of black and white comics not being quite up to snuff. And I looked around at the time. You had First Comics, you had Comico, you had a handful of independent comic companies that were doing stuff in color, and you know, it looked good, and you know, obviously some better than others, but when I envisioned Cat and Mouse, it was absolutely 100% in color.
And in fact, it was.
Yeah, and it actually really was. I don't know if I have a copy right here. I might, but the very first Curtis, do you have the very first Cat and Mouse in color?
Yeah, it has that
Okay.
great cover with the crosshairs on the.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Cover.
So yeah, this I'm gonna make me a large solo.
That's
so this
okay.
very first issue, the very first issue of Cat and Mouse was done in color, right? So now when Malibu did it, they obviously reprinted it in black and white. But as you can see, this was in color, and so for me, that's the way I envisioned it. That way. But it was in black and white simply because of financial reasons. They're like, it costs too much to print that, and we're not sure, you know, we could sell these. And so we're like, okay, we would rather have it done than not done. So
Definitely. What about for you, Patrick, with the original iteration of Tiger's Tail, and you know?
I mean, when I worked in other indie comics in black and white, color was aspirational. I mean, when I worked with Tiger's Tail, I kind of pretty quickly figured out that I wanted to keep it black and white, and then I would use color. Like when I would have a chance to use a color page, I'd kind of craft the story around it. You know, oh my God, there's a dragon. I'll make the dragon in color, that sort of thing. But now that color is an option, I feel like, you know, for what I want to do now, it makes the most sense to do it in color, and then to, like, you know, I'm learning new techniques constantly, so I want to share that. So I want to work in the color that way. But I think in terms of like what I'm trying, you know, who I'm trying to reach with my project, I think, you know, color will just get it, you know, we'll get it a little further, right? You have to kind of have a specific taste to want to just read a black and white comic. Even though there are so many good ones out there, so many great examples, we've mentioned a bunch, but it's still like, it's an acquired taste, you know, like, whereas color is more like candy, right? Everyone can enjoy something colorful.
Yeah,
But then if someone can actually use color in a way that conveys the story, that shows sophistication, that's like the next level of it, you know?
And nobody's going to say, oh my God, this book's in color. I don't want it.
Right.
My book only.
Yeah. That's so true. Pete, what do you do you see the same kind of things in England as far as kind of the attitudes with fans about black and white and color?
Yeah, I mean, our market is still very an American market, comic book wise. You go into a comic book store, it's dominated by American comics, so it's all color. Yeah, I mean, when I'm drawing, I draw for it to be seen in black and white. So if it works in black and white, it's going to work in color.
Yeah.
I don't do that where I just leave everything as like a coloring book and then just say, well, it's not my problem anymore. Off it goes. The colorist is going to do what the colorist has no idea. If you've got a specific light source in mind, you've got to put it in there. Otherwise, how's Roberto going to know what I mean?
Right.
So you've got to draw. I think you should draw it for it to be seen in black and white. If it works in black and white, it's going to work in color. If it doesn't work in black and white, then you need to work on it so the colorist knows what to do.
Yeah.
I knew I
I
like
don't always
working
get it
with him
right,
for
but-
some reason.
Yeah.
No, but you know what I'm always doing is turning the color off, saying, did I ruin it? You know.
You didn't. Don't worry.
So it really
you
helps
didn't.
to get perspective.
I like the way you have the little thumbnail image up in the top right of your workspace.
Mhm. You know why? Because
I don't.
I'm gonna go, well, I want this, and I want to put it here. So it's a quick move.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's how I can move around quicker, because
pretty
I
cool.
really hate putting my hands on the keyboard more than I have to. Shortcuts issues.
Yeah. I'm all about shortcuts.
So that's where it goes.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
When I was learning from Carmine Infantino at School of Visual Arts, he would make us watch Alfred Hitchcock movies and fast forward on like a VHS. And these would be only the black and white Hitchcock movies, because he wanted us to focus on the composition, just in terms of lights and darks. So he would play it in fast forward, so you could kind of just track the story based on how the screen was composed, what the blacks were and what the whites were. And he would just always emphasize, if you could get that composition done and you could tell your story that way, then color doesn't matter. You can add color or not, but the important thing is to have, is to be able to, have a light source and to have, the image balanced out so that you can move the eye just based on what's light and what's dark.
Yeah, it's kind of like taking it to the martial arts kind of stuff. Like Bruce Lee's student, one of his students, Dan Inosanto, used to say, he would say, don't use speed to make up for your poor technique. Your speed embellishes your technique, but you have good technique, right? And it's kind of like with coloring and all that. It's like use the pencils, the inks, and then the coloring accentuates it, but don't use it as a crutch to make up for inadequacies that should be done in that earlier step. Right?
And not to mention, can I say something about that? Because Curtis is bringing up an excellent point that, if you're accentuating in each step, the inker is accentuating the penciler's vision and the colorist should accentuate. But if you have a poor drawing or a poor 3D space, you're making that 3D space more real. And it just makes it way worse, unless you're a jerk of a colorist and go, well, I'm just going to change that and see if they don't notice. But no, it honestly, it's all part of it. You have to have that on.
You're putting the spotlight on the one actor on the stage that's doing a bad job, right?
Yeah. Gee, it's funny, Curtis. I think I just saw on Cobra Kai the other day that they said speed can make up for technique.
Did they really?
Have you seen how good Ralph Macchio's martial arts has been since
till
now? You'll know that's a lie.
Yeah. I think it wasn't those exact words, but that was kind of the concept. Is this new kid was really super fast, and so they're like, use that for you, use that, just because you can't do karate, you can go do this. And I'm like, okay,
good luck to you.
Right.
That's why parents tell their kids when they're driving, when they're learning to drive, just speed up. It'll all figure itself out. It'll all work out. just drive faster.
Drive faster. Yeah. Eric's got a couple other questions here. He goes, are there any stories that you couldn't see any other way? For example, James O'Barr's original Crow can't work in color. And on the flip side, Busiek and Perez's Avengers JLA has to be in color. What do you guys think?
I don't think that's true either. I think
I don't think it's true either. I think that if it was meant to be one way or the other, they would have changed the way that the art works. So that's not. I don't think that's really a statement. I don't think that's an equal statement. You know what I mean? Just if you were to take the color out of the Superman book, or if you were to add color to the Crow book, they probably would have drawn the Crow book a little different if it was going to be in color.
Well, let's look at what is it, Marvel Essentials, right? Which is just all the books in black and white, right?
That's true. Yeah.
So those do okay, right? Those look all right, and they're all in black and white.
I'd say it's a different book. It's not that you can't do it, but it definitely tonally changes the book. drastically. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and I think too there are some things like, you know, I'm a big fan of the blue furry. Anyone who's ever read Cat and Mouse and has demon in it knows that I'm a big fan of the blue furry beast in the Avengers. And in Black and White, you don't get that, right? It's just an outline of a furry dude, right? The Vision, you know, green and yellow. My vision is anyway. Black and White, it's just John Byrne's vision. Sorry, I didn't mean to stab there, but I did, didn't I?
I still remember reading the black and white books, even some of the Cat and Mouse ones, and I would fill in the color in my head.
Yeah.
And then when the cover would come up with the character, I go, "Oh, he's that color," or "Oh, she's
Right? Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I thought Demon was pink. Like, what happened here?"
Yeah. Well, in the case of some instances, the colors were wrong. Because on Demon's Tales, Tommy remembers this. I was so unhappy with Malibu because they got the color of Champion wrong. And I sent them the information, and it's like, no, why is he blue and white? No, he's not blue and white. So
Wow.
I was really unhappy with the colors for that cover. Not in that the colorist colored them poorly, because I think he did a fine job.
He
It's
just didn't
just
pass the information on to him.
right. It's just like,
Yeah.
you know, that's not what I told you guys. So and of course, you know, our lovely folks at Malibu said, yeah, we're not recoloring it.
Well, I think that brings a great point, right? Because it comes back to the intent of the creator, right? Do they initially envision this as a, you know, a full color extravaganza, or is this like a noir black and white,
Yeah.
you know, high contrast thing? I think, you know, a story like, you know, JLA Avengers could not be, you know, a noir black and white thing just by virtue of the fact that it's the Justice League and the Avengers. So, you know, it's already a colorful comic book, but you know,
well, that leads to Eric's next question, because you just kind of you segued there. He says, does scale of conflict come into play for color versus black and white? And you said, Patrick, it's JLA versus the Avengers. It has to be in color, right? Which would lead you to think the scale of conflict.
yeah,
What do you
I mean,
think?
what I was thinking more along the lines of genre conventions, but that's, you know, it would be true both ways, right? Like a Mickey Spillane comic, right, can be black and white, and it could work perfectly well. But you know, Justice League, planets blowing up, you know, dimension hopping, it just seems like the expectation is in the genre. So I think,
Yeah.
you know, but I mean, I guess that's where you get into something like Batman black and white, right? Where it's taking Batman and explicitly taking Batman and making it a black and white story, comic format.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I'd say like with George Perez's stuff and his phenomenal level of detail, the coloring actually helped the eye track panel to panel, because your eye can just get lost in all that amazing detail. Like I remember when he was working on Ultra Force, we would get like the original pieces of him doing like the whole team, and like my eyes would just go crazy.
Yeah.
I
I don't know where to look.
Yeah,
you couldn't see anything because it was just so much
it was
stuff.
amazing. It was amazing.
Yeah.
But then when it's colored, your eye could kind of like, you know, pick things out and move on.
Yeah.
And that's not a knock. It just means it was a perfect combination of everybody on the team coming
Yeah.
together, you know.
Yeah. And that's why the Silverline team up art team is perfect.
Oh yeah.
Well, guys, my clock says 9:31. Anybody have any kind of final thoughts on color versus black and white?
I like it.
I'm a colorist and I like black and white. So
Yeah.
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 I don't mind black and white books.
So I think what we kind of the consensus though is that we would not buy a comic because it was in black and white or because it was in color, right?
correct.
Yeah.
It should
Yeah.
work in black and white.
It should work in black and
Regardless.
white.
It should work in black and white, even if it's not, even if it's going to be coloured.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish that there were more consumers that way, but I get it, and I think that's one of the things that we kind of do have to understand as creators is that the overwhelming majority of readers want the color. They want to see it because for whatever reason, there's a lot of different things, a lot of different reasons out there, but they want the color. So, and I love color. Obviously, I think again, I was pushing Silverline Team Up today, and I'm like, man, that is just a good looking book. So sold a couple copies today too, by the way.
Very good.
If anyone bought it.
So so was very happy with that. So okay, so final thoughts.
I think kind of Pete hit the nail on the head. I mean, I guess you could say all comic books are black and white. Some of them move on to being in color also, but every single book
Right.
is black and white.
I agree.
Yeah. So somebody's knocking at the door
Knocking at the
there.
door?
Yeah.
Oh, that's Roberta's
No,
door.
it's my door.
Somebody's cat wants to come in really bad.
I'll answer in a
Somebody's
minute.
knocking at her door.
Well, I think we could all agree, right, that,
Well, let
that
me
quality comes through regardless of color or black and white.
Mhm.
Yes,
Definitely.
Brandon,
I think so.
I'm on my story.
So we want to thank Patrick for joining us tonight.
Let me
Patrick,
thank you guys. This was a blast.
Yeah, it was
Oh.
fun.
Yeah, it's good to have you.
Guys, don't forget to pop on over to Kickstarter and check out a Tiger's Tail. Let's see. You said you made goal already, right? Yeah. So he's got some stretch goals there. He's already talked about tonight. Pop on over there, see if it's something that interests you, and if you can back it, please do so. Patrick, tell folks where they can find you online.
You can find me at atigerstail.com, right? My Twitter is at Plugo, Plugo. Everywhere else, you can find me at Plugo Arts. My website is Plugo Arts. And then I'm on Facebook and most anywhere I can they'll let me be. I'll try and be there.
Stephanie said, "Thanks for the chat."
Good question, Stephanie.
This was a
Thank
great
you.
Sun. This was much better than the Super Bowl for sure.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and no one asked us for score updates either. That was nice, wasn't it?
We won.
That's right.
That's
Somebody asked me today at the show. They said,
I did record the halftime show. I'm going to go back and watch it.
and I said, you know what? I'm not even sure who's playing. I know that Tampa
Oh.
Bay didn't make
I
it this
don't know who was playing either. And I sat here and watched part of it, and I don't even know who was playing.
Fred says, Roland, is that your? It's in my basement.
Yeah,
No,
Roland lives in the basement.
This is not my basement. This is actually our
This
our
is-
spare room that has been turned into into my office. It is my home office. I do teach, and about half of what I do is online, and about half of what I do is on campus. And so the half that I'm online is right here. So yeah, I go to class to teach, and then when I'm not in class, this is where I teach from. And so my students, they don't often ask me if I'm in my basement, but they do often ask me, "Is that really comic books behind you?"
It's a virtual background.
Yeah. So these are all real. These are I can grab any of them, and you see, I got a Kickstarter here. I haven't opened yet. Don't tell them. I got it though. I just haven't had a chance to open it. So this is all real stuff. This is where the magic happens here. Not a basement though. My son is right over there. My wife is right down there. So I guess I could show you the ceiling too, right? Whoop. See, that's not a basement.
They got ceilings in basements too. What does that got to do with it?
That's
It's
true.
just
I
real.
guess they do. Oop, my wife says, "Don't show your floor."
Yeah, I was gonna say, is there a floor? Because we know there's
There
no
is.
floor in
It's
basement.
carpet, but I got stuff down there.
Yeah.
Curtis, tell folks where they can find you on the interwebs.
Sure. So there's two places you can find me, either through for my comic book, go to www.theshadowghost.com. Make sure to put the in front. Or for my martial arts school, www.tigercrane.net, and all the social media and stuff is on there as well. So you can find me there.
Tommy, what about you? Where can folks find you on the interwebs?
Just type in Flormonte into Google. It's FLORIMONTE. I know it's 10 letters, but it's pretty easy, but you're going to spell it wrong anyway. So go to Inferno Studios. There's some links there. You can find me on Facebook. I've got I'm on TikTok and I'm on, blah, 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 blah.
Hey, I get so bored doing all this. Roberta, what about you? Where can folks find you on the interwebs?
Well, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram under Roberta Conroy, and here on Silverline Sundays.
That's right.
There you go.
Pete, what about you? Where can folks find you on the interwebs?
On the Google, you type in Peter Clinton art, and there I shall be.
He'll disappear. Boom.
Easy enough. Boom.
Right.
There's Pete. Pete, don't jump off too quick. I want to ask you about by headshot when we
Me?
out here. Yeah. You, Pete.
Uh-oh.
And I am Roland. You can find me and on all the social medias. Look for Roland Man or Man Roland. And you guys, whoops, let me pull it. You guys know what? That's right. Don't forget to like, hit, share, subscribe. Shout out to our sponsor, Daytona Beach Comic Con. You will see them coming up here in just a second. And you guys remember what we do on our sign off. Tommy, where's Yoda? There we go. Number 2. Ready? Make mine Silverline. All right. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm Alex Savia. I just want to let you know, make mine Silverline.